Hello, welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook. If this is your first time listening to my podcast, then please be aware that you can actually subscribe now. And actually, if you're not new to the podcast, you can still subscribe. There's a link in the show notes. Wherever you get your podcast, you should be able to see that subscribe link. It would be really great if you could help me. But equally, remember that this is still going to carry on being free because I just love doing it. So I'm absolutely delighted. For this episode of Harmonious World, I'm delighted to be joined by Vivienne Aerts, who is a vocalist and composer, and her new album is called Typuhthang. So when you see that written down, you'll see how it works. And that's come out today, and it's celebrating International Women's Day. I'm delighted that Vivienne was able to spare me some time earlier this week to talk about the album. What you're listening to right now is Silence, which is the first single from the album. One of the loveliest things about Typuhthang is the fact that it's designed to empower women in every aspect of the project, from performing, recording, arranging, mixing, mastering. This is just a wonderful album, and it's a great thing to have for International Women's Day 2023. So I hope you enjoy listening to my conversation with Vivienne Aerts. So Vivienne Aerts, welcome to Harmonious World. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure.
Excellent. Now tell me how you pronounce the name of the album.
Right. Well, the album is a lot of things. So we came up with a word that doesn't really exist, but it's basically type of thing. So type of thing.
Oh, Typuhthang.
Because there's a lot of things.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of things
confused.
going on.
Right.
and the album's out today, and it's International Women's Day on Wednesday next week. Right. And it's all tied in together, and this is all about empowering women. And I love a bit that I read about this that was talking about the fact that it's not about charity, it's about empowering women to be successful and to achieve stuff. And it's about sustainability, and it's about chocolate, which is always good. And yes. So talk me through it.
Somehow we put everything in. It got a little out of hand. But basically, because of my husband, who's a pastry chef, I got in touch with this wonderful chocolate brand that's called Original Beans. They're from the Netherlands. I'm based in New York. But we've been working with this chocolate, creating like experience art, where my husband Teddy makes a massive edible pastry painting that I accompany with improvised music. So we got in touch with this wonderful chocolate brand that's good for the nature, good for the people. They pay the farmers like living wage, which is like 220% higher than fair trade. Therefore, they can send the kids to school instead of just putting the kids to work, right?
Right.
It's really making a change if you buy a product for the real price, which is not ridiculously higher than you would think, right? Still, a bar of chocolate from this brand is very affordable, and I mean, I think you pay like €5 or so in Europe,
right?
So yeah, you want to just cut out the middleman, so you know everything where this bean is coming from, and therefore you know it's traceable, and you know the backstory. I was so inspired about one of their projects that's actually by now they have 1,500 female cacao farmers in Congo. So it's the first women cacao collective. It's in Virunga State Park in Congo, and there's a lot of drama in where they live. So we're empowering them by just buying that chocolate. So I figured, because of these collaborations I've been doing with my pastry chef husband, music should become an experience again. So we decided to add this bar of chocolate to my album, and then for obvious reasons on the album it had to be a bunch of women, and I didn't want to just have a female band, but I just went through my list of my friends that I all love, and for the music they make and create, and it just became a very long list. So I figured, let's do a bunch of songs with different female arrangers, and then just outsource the arrangements of my compositions. And therefore all the songs are different. So there's a big band song, there's a choir song, there's an orchestra song, there's a string quartet, and in between these songs are like short improvisational soundscapes that I compiled from Sound of the Jungle, from Virunga State Park. I got these sound samples from the radio journalist Penny Taylor. She works for BBC Radio, and she was there in 2016 interviewing these women about their cacao business, and she just sent me all her material, and I was able to just capture like shaking of the beans and digging in the ground, and you hear these women sing, and I use little bits of that into the soundscapes, and that connects all the songs. So yeah, there's songs, if you will, like singer-songwriter jazz vibe songs, and in between there's a little improvisation going on.
Yes, and actually I'm going to intersperse bits of our conversation with some of those little tracks, because they're really nice. They're really evocative, I think, and evocative of probably what life is really like for some of these women. And so, as you said, the tracks are really varied. How long did it take? I mean, this process must have taken ages.
This project has been 2 years in the making. It started with the idea of like, I want to have a bunch of women. And then the first test I ran was for Women's Day in 2020, where I collected 50 one-note samples, videos from my friends, because I needed to know if I could mobilize so many people. So I just like texted everybody on the Instagrams and the Facebook, hey, send me a video of you playing one note, which was quite a fascinating assignment, because many would be like, oh, which note, where, right?
Yeah.
What note, how?
Yeah.
And I gave him complete freedom with just one note. And it became a 1-minute sound piece that I just like organized. And then I was like, oh, well, this is actually possible to just have a lot of people. So yeah, that was 2020 during the pandemic. Obviously everybody records in their own house, and then I started talking to different friends that I found to become the arrangers for different songs. So we have Zayli, who's from Cuba. She lives in Boston, and she's an amazing piano player. And she made my song that's normally like sort of straight ahead jazz. She morphed it into a Cuban style bolero for big bands. And there's my Swedish friend. She works a lot with choir, so she changed my song into a choir piece. So then after all these arrangements were sort of like in the making, I started reaching out to the different musicians with the question like, hey, can you play the clarinet on this piece, or can you play the alto singing part? Or so I just outsourced all the parts, and then it was just a gazillion of emails. And then it was just putting that all together in the computer, making one file, one song, and cleaning it up and making sure that everybody's in line with the song. So I did all the production for that, and then I added my own song voice on it, and then I sent it all to the mixing engineer, who added like the reverb, and she made like the balance of all the parts, right, so that the drums is not too loud. And so we did a lot of organization with that. And then at the very end, I had even a female master engineer, and that's the basically the master engineer. They put all the songs in one big
Yeah.
file and then
Yeah.
make them balance with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and then music videos, marketing, the design of the book. It was it's been a trip.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the book actually, because the book is just lovely. It's
Thank you.
a piece of art in itself. I mean, not only is it full of lots of information, but it's just beautiful, just beautiful. The images about about the women around the world, and I love this bit about how to taste chocolate and using the five senses, and it is a beautiful piece of art.
Thank you. Yeah, it came together because I talked to my designer, and she's amazing visual artist. She paints and she does a lot of ceramics, and she's just artistic, and her job is mainly designing book covers. And when I told her about this project, she's like, you don't need a normal CD book, right? You want to have a book with describing the story and all the different angles, because it's so information dense, right? There's all these people and names and sounds, and so she's like, we need to do a book, and I was like, okay, cool. So I started writing the text for it, and she made like super nice drawings to the story, and we decided, we need to at least educate people a little bit about how you actually can taste the chocolate, because it's all the senses, right? You smell it, you hear it, because it needs to, if it's all chocolate, it doesn't make like the sound when
that
you
crack. Yeah.
So and then she was like, oh, we couldn't have like a French fold around, which is, and I was searching for nice paper, and everything needs to be recycled and blah blah, sustainable. And I found this company that makes paper from cacao husk. So the outer cover, that's a limited edition. We had that on the special paper for it from cacao husk, and we screen printed that, which was an adventure in itself, because I was like, oh yeah, we'll do that. My friend or designer Natalia, she's like, yeah, we could screen print, and I'm like, okay. So then we had to find out how to actually do that. And we screen printed the lips and the beans, which became sort of the image. I didn't want a picture of myself on the front. That's like, done that. Right. This is my third album, and it's not about me. I think it's the magic about all these voices and things together, just proving that how awesome, women are awesome, and people in the world need to know about it.
And that collaboration, I think there is something intensely feminine about that desire to collaborate in something that you might not even have your photo on or your name on, or whatever, and it's just to produce a piece of art or a piece of music that just exists, and there's something very female, I think, about that. And then this is perfect timing for International Women's Day, to just celebrate women. And these amazing women who all they want to do is they want to work. They want to work. They want to support their families. They want their children to be able to go to school because they're earning enough money so that they don't have the children don't have to work, and that sort of thing. So well done to you for sort of pulling this project together, because it's clearly a lot of work.
It's been very fun. We and everybody put their own voice on it. That's, I mean, I couldn't have done that without, I think I purposely sought out like musician friends that really put their own voice on it as well, because it's very common that the person that hires somebody, that you have some sort of a guidance, but I gave them total freedom to create what they think the song needed. And therefore it's become very eclectic. It's still my song, it's still my voice laying on it, and it's still sort of this, the lyrics are in sort of a vibe that I think it's still me. but yeah, that it's yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, no, it's just brilliant. So talk to me about one of my favorite tracks is The Way You Touched My Hand. Can you talk to me a little bit about that track?
So Marielle Roberts, who did the arrangement, she's a cellist and she doesn't really play normal cello. She's like a monster on it. She uses pedals, and I mean, cellos are afraid of her, basically. And she's our neighbor in Brooklyn. So we know her well, and I've played shows with her, just improvising. So when I told her, hey, maybe you want to do an arrangement for one of the songs, she was like, well, are you sure? Are you sure? And I was like, yeah, but it needs to be you. And she was still a little bit like, are you sure? So she sent me back a score with just those string parts that are basically like sounds with pling,
Yeah. Yeah.
all on strings. But she really wrote it out. It's all on paper, right? So I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm sure it's going to sound good, because I don't really play. I mean, I can read what they do, but there's all these accentures, all these special things you could do with a violin or a string that I would have no clue of.
Yeah.
Right. But she all wrote that on the score, and then then they all recorded it, and I got it back, and I was like, wow, this is a bizarre piece.
Yeah, it is.
And
in a good way.
And then I still had to put my voice on it. But I was like, where does my voice begin? But she actually just used the full lead sheet that I initially gave her, which is chords and a melody and lyrics, right? So the song is exactly how I wrote it, except
right.
it's sort of it just lays on my song is exactly like I sang it,
right?
But under it is a sea of disturbance, if you will.
Yeah.
And that intensity, and the click. If I mean you wouldn't, if you listen to it, it's actually in time, so you can just click a 3/4 bar very slowly, though. It's a very slow beat.
Yeah.
But it's actually there. But if you would just hear the strings, you think they're doing random stuff.
Right, but it's
they're
not random. No.
No, because it's recorded remotely. So we had to figure out how they're not really playing together. We had to just first record the cello, and then we send it to the alto, and then we send these two parts to the top strings on the first and second violin. And so it was sort of a build up how we recorded it. So they sort of play together, but not really. They're not in the same room at all.
Wow.
And then for the effects, to make it even more dramatic, the mixing engineer Jess Fenton put a lot of like weird echoes and like the left right speaker, right? The monitor, the stereo picture. She was playing with that.
Right.
So yeah, it became this. Yeah, I would say it's a monstrous piece, but it is,
it's a benevolent monster, I think.
Right. It's still listenable because the melody is just so kind, right? You can follow the melody, and therefore digesting whatever is below that in the strings is okay. I hope.
I think so.
Get close to me, secretly waiting for a new start.
This is now a snippet from The Way You Touched My Hand, so I hope you can get a glimpse of what Vivienne was talking about.
But for them, there is no reason, because of the way you touched my hand. But for them, there is no reason, because of the way you touched my hand. You touched my hand.
Tell me a little bit about your background.
So I grew up in the Netherlands, and I studied at the conservatory as well as at the university. So at the conservatory, I did like singing and choir conducting. And at the University of Leiden, I studied my bachelor and master clinical psychology. At the time I did that was around like 2005-ish, 7-ish. They were cool with me doing two studies at the same time in two different cities. There were guys, I'm not sure if they would be okay right now, but yeah, I would just do both. And then I graduated all of that. And in the daytime, I worked as a psychologist in a private practice. And in the evenings, I would have 5 choirs as a pianist conductor.
Wow.
And in the weekends, I would like have concerts, doing like jazz gigs. And so then I gave that all up. I quit all the work and I went to Berkeley, fully paid to study on a Fulbright and some other scholarships to study at Berkeley a little bit more and focus on my voice and on composition more than because I did a lot of choirs, but I really wanted to do more jazz.
Right.
And that was 2012. I got to Boston and I studied there. I got into the honors track with all these famous jazz people like Danilo Perez and Joe Lovano and Dave Liebman.
Wow.
All these people just were there every week and still are. I mean, the program is amazing, global jazz program they have. And during my last semester, I met this piano player, Kenny Werner, who's a famous piano player. He played with Toots Thielemans for 20 years, but he toured all over the world. He's also famous for this book that he wrote called Effortless Mastery.
Funnily enough, I saw a friend of mine's got that book and I saw it. I knew the name rang a bell and I saw it literally on Friday. That's bizarre. Yes. Yeah.
So basically, effortless mastery is, in order to master something, it needs to be easy. It needs to be effortless. So this whole book became a thing. He wrote it like 27 years ago or so. So I think it's the most read book in music education. And this book then, during my last semester, his first semester, this book became an institute. So now we have the Berkeley Effortless Mastery Institute, and I've been working there with him, growing that institute from the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
And obviously that was a perfect blend of my professions, right? The psychology part and the music part, because we teach people how to just be themselves and how to let go of their fear and get back to the moment, right? And play music from there, because that's where the magic is.
Right.
So yeah, I did graduate and just started working for Kenny, and obviously I perform with him, we tour, and I did move to New York. So I've been in New York since 15 and doing all these projects, different things. With my husband, we create these edible pastry paintings, and then I work for Berkeley, teaching effortless mastery. And, creating music, different people.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's brilliant. That is so weird that I saw that book for the first time on Friday. And now here we are having this conversation 3 days later. So that's amazing. Oh, listen, it's been such a pleasure to talk to you, and it'll be really good. I'm really looking forward to this appearing on the day of the album's release, which is the 3rd of March, and then that's just a few days before International Women's Day, which seems absolutely perfect timing for this. So
great. Thank you so much.
That's okay. Thank you so much for joining me, Vivienne. I really appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation. It was just amazing to speak to Vivienne, and I'm excited that this podcast is coming out on 3rd of March 2023, and so is her album. And then we've got International Women's Day, and March is Women's History Month, so it's absolutely apt that we should be playing this album today. Please do follow the links in the show notes and see what Vivienne is up to and find out more about this album. But it's an absolutely stunning album. There's so much going on, and you've heard The Journey Begins, which was what the soundscape I played earlier, The Way You Touched My Hand. We started with Silence, and this track you're listening to now is What Will We Be? So let's do everything we can to make this world a little more harmonious. But thank you so much for joining me once again.
A cat or a dentist without teeth, you never know. Or a person that will read the news, a shrink that tells the people why they have the blues. We can be so many things. Maybe we will change the world, but I just like to be myself, just as I can with you.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.